You all ready? Yep. All right, Coach.
Well, thrilled to be here on December 16th. The semester's over. We've had commencement. We're still playing football, so that's a good sign. We're one of four teams. Really excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. I think looking back to Friday night, felt we certainly did what we had to do. It wasn't super easy right from the start. There was certainly some give and take, but I think we took advantage of the opportunities that presented themselves, in particular in that second and third quarter, and just really proud of the guys for that. A lot of teams, you get to that 10-10 situation, I think would be, maybe panic would settle in or whatever, but, this team is not built that way. And you make a lot about the onside kick and the fumble and those type of things, but we had to take advantage of those opportunities ultimately to be 7 of 7 touchdowns in the red zone was critical. Our third down versus their third down. I think at one point it was 11 out of 13 versus 0 out of 8. I know it didn't quite finish that way, but significant stats that we always look at, and just felt like our guys, made the most of that night, and certainly within that game, made the most of the opportunities that presented themselves. So it was a physical game. You come off 2 physical games in a short week. It was good to have the extra day. Obviously, got a chance to see South Dakota and Davis play on Saturday and how that unfolded. And then, got to work on South Dakota. I think South Dakota is a really good football team. You come out of that league and you're a tri-champion, I guess. They all beat each other once, the way that played out. And, that's a huge credit to them to become a piece of that, to get a piece of that. And, Coach Nielsen is a longtime head coach who's had a lot of success over the course of his career. And, he's built this, over the last 9 years into a program that's, that's right there with, the 2 schools that have really dominated our division over the last decade plus. So credit goes to him for continuing to build it in such a fashion. You look at their team, I think they're a very good team, meaning they don't have to lean on offense or defense. I think they're good on both sides of the ball offensively, really balanced, right around 220 a game, both rushing and passing, 2,000-yard rushers, and 2 different styles of backs between Pierre and Tice. Aiden Bowman's been very efficient as a passer, and he's got a lot of guys to throw to at the same time. Really good receiving crew, a good tight end in Galbraith that they brought back this last week. They throw to their backs, so really balanced offense, and one that we'll certainly have our hands full defending. And then on defense, they've been really good at stopping the run. Just over 100 yards a game on the ground, and then. They can get after the passer, led by Grace, who's got, I think, about 19 TFLs and just about 10 sacks. I think was the defensive player of the year in the Missouri Valley. So, and they play a bunch of guys, really good linebacking crew, good safeties. They fly to the ball. They make it really hard to do what you want to do. And they've, you look at those 2 games, the South Dakota State, the North Dakota State games, very low-scoring, competitive games that, defense won the day, I think, in those 2 games. And, they're certainly right there in those games, one at the line of scrimmage, and that's where it starts for them, I think, on both sides of the football. Very good offensive line, and then a defensive line that can certainly hold its own. So we'll have our hands full. We look forward to it, though, an opportunity to play one more game here to close out our home season, 9 home games. I don't think it's ever been done before, so excited for the 9th and the most exciting and the most impactful crowd that Bobcat Stadium has seen this year. I know we'll need that, unfamiliar territory for South Dakota, so we want to make them feel our crowd throughout. And our crowd had a big impact on Friday night and has throughout the season, and obviously we will need that come Saturday. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Any update on Scott Ray or Roman?
Yeah, everybody, has a chance this week. That's why we put the depth chart the way we did. I think they were both game time decisions on Friday night. And who knows, maybe a Saturday game maybe gives one or both of them a chance. So I think early in the week, like where they're both at, and the chance that they'll have this weekend. With that being said, really didn't sustain anything new. So it's really the holdovers, those two guys in particular, that we're looking to get back and be as strong as we've been, at any point in time here in November and December.
South Dakota showed multiple fronts in that game on Saturday, but do they like to do that, or do they kind of stick to one?
Well, I think they're a 4-down by nature team. They do stand Grace up at the outside linebacker. I know they refer to him as a rush linebacker, but he's a defensive end in all intents and terms, I guess. So, they have the ability to mix it up. I think they are good because they know what they want to do and they do it really well. They don't try to do a ton of things. They're good in coverage. Their safeties really fly to the football. So I've been really impressed with their defense and having gone back, I watched the night they played South Dakota State. Was really impressed that night, and knew that if we had a chance to play them down the road, it would be, one of the better defenses we certainly would see.
What impressed you most about that South Dakota State performance?
Well, they made it really hard on South Dakota State that night, and as it got into the later part of the game, I mean, they were ultimately felt like they were in control. It didn't work out for them. It goes to overtime, but I think to go to Brookings and be able to play them that way, I think that in itself was impressive. It was apparent that you could see that they were prepared to go toe-to-toe with South Dakota State. And then a bunch of weeks later, NDSU has to go down there. And that was an unusual game, unusual finish, but they found a way to win. So when you can put yourself in the conversation with those two programs, you've taken things to a pretty high level.
I guess speaking of finding a way to win, South Dakota, the last few games they've had to find several different ways to win. I guess what does that say about their team holistically?
Yeah, I think they're a team that plays complementary football for sure. I know they've really benefited from the takeaways the last two games. Getting 6 against Davis, that's almost unheard of. And you could hear it in the post game. There was no worry they were going to pick each other up, because I know they turned it over 3 times offensively as well in this past game. So I think there is a sense of confidence. Games, I'm sure, like the NDSU game, last regular season game of the season, where they found a way, it seemingly against all odds, to pull that one out. You build out of that type of game, and then you get in the playoffs, and it really, that sense of belief can really catch on like wildfire. So I think that's definitely where they're at. They're also good in special teams as well. So. They have a team that, much like us, you want to be good on both sides of the ball. You want to be impactful in the special teams, and that plays this time of year. So there's a good reason that they're still alive.
You mentioned Bowman earlier, just efficiency or consistency. I guess what stands out about him as a passer?
Yeah, I've known Aiden for a long time. Recruited a tight end out of his high school the year before when Aiden was a junior, and Aiden's dad, Todd, was the coach, and so I had watched him a lot as a high school player, and he'd committed to Iowa State at that time. So, really talented, big athlete was what he looked like as a high schooler, and this is the first time I've really had a chance to watch him intently as a college player. But really strong arm. He's got great size. He's got a quick release. Son of a coach, and his dad Todd was an NFL player as well. So, he's got a really good football mind, it appears. Commands their offense, makes good decisions. So, he's definitely the one that drives it for him offensively. He's got a lot of weapons around him, but without him playing to the level he is, they wouldn't be having the success they are.
You mentioned around the time of senior day that the senior class knew, they have a few more games at home now, with this being the final game at home, with how special the senior class is. How do you kind of handle those emotions going into this one? Does it seem like they're pretty good at handling their emotions? But
yeah.
What's in store this weekend?
I don't know. I think ultimately what they've done now is they've maxed out what it could be, as far as the home games go. But more importantly, there's another game on the other side of this that they all desire way more than anything else. So, they've done a really good job of making the most of every moment, meaning we're going to prepare like we can so that the moment works out in our favor. I think that's what I I really think this group has going for us. They don't. I think they know the gravity of the situation for sure, but they don't let that weigh them down. And they've been able to lead our team in a fashion because of how they go about their business each week. Those bunch of seniors are, so critical to our success, but the way it plays out on a Friday night or all these Saturdays is one thing. It's what they're doing, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to prepare and to show the other guys how it's done. So I think there's a lot of gratitude in maximizing the home opportunities this year, and I'm sure there'll be some emotions knowing that this will be the last game here. But I know it's more about creating a couple more weeks to this season, a couple more weeks to this team, and ultimately reaching that last game is that they're going to be after.
Speaking of that, Brody specifically, I know you spoke about it plenty of times before, but final home game for him, how do you kind of put into words what he's meant just to this program?
Yeah, I think there's a number of those guys. You look at I think for those guys, they would say, hey, we want to leave the place better than we found it, and there's no question they've done that. And I think there's a bunch of guys that have raised the bar at their position. I think Brody certainly has done that. I think a bunch of guys that have raised the bar on what it means to be a student athlete here at Montana State, and I think Brody definitely exemplifies that. And a group of guys that I think don't take anything for granted. They don't take any of these games for granted. They don't take their education for granted. They don't take what it means to be a Bobcat for granted. And there's, it's not just Brody carrying that flag. It's a bunch of them. So I think that's the really neat part about this group is that feeling of not taking opportunities for granted, whether it is on the football field, in school, in life, I think has really permeated this team, and we're far from perfect in that regard. But it's leaders like Brody that his legacy will be felt for a long, long time. He'll go down as one of the greats, I think, in this program. I have no doubt in my mind in saying that. So I'm excited for him and this group to have maximized their opportunities here this fall, and excited for them to figure out how we can keep this thing going.
Tom, you talked a lot about his improved passing. Was there anything specific that you saw him work on over the off season, or just that he's really kind of mastered this year?
I don't know that like anything special fundamentally or anything like that. I think we did make some adjustments in what we were doing. I think we added a much more thorough quick game package, I guess, to create more ordinary quarterback throws. It's not that we didn't have it, some elements of that in our passing game the past few years, but we really made a concerted effort there. I think the area I think he's improved the most is down the field passing. That was, and I'm talking posts and things like that. Just stuff we didn't do a lot with him the last couple of years. If we were going to do much of that, it was probably with Chambers. So that's probably from a physical perspective the one thing that he's improved. And I think the game has just continued to slow down for him in the passing game. Meaning, okay, he's going to actually take the time to maybe go through a couple reads. His ability to be dialed in pre-snap, I think, is to a point this year where he's making the decisions before the stuff's even before the movement's even happening. And while he is still scrambling and is an effective scrambler, it's not necessarily this instinct, I guess. So there's some training his own mind, I suppose, that has gone into that. I know Coach Walker's work with him, I think, has been very productive through the time that he's been with them. I think even Coach Keaton, Chucky had an impact on him going back to the winter. So he was on this track. It's just, I think it's all come together, and it's probably some physical, but it's more just, it's a combination of what we're doing and it really fitting him this year, and him taking his game and his confidence to, I think really to an elite level right now.
And obviously, 3 years ago, he had that really good semifinal performance here. Guys like Justice, Ryland, Brody were playing big roles on that team. So how much have you thought back to those guys' performance and just that game overall, the last semifinal game you've had here?
Yeah, it was a special day for this program, and it is good that we do have some guys that were a big piece of that game. I look at this group now has played in 10 playoff games, right? I think that would be the number, and so they've been in some different situations, both here in Bobcat Stadium and on the road. I think they understand what playoff football is all about, meaning you've got to go out there and play your very best against a team that's capable of doing the same thing. Know that the other team is going to be able to make plays. Know that if we're at home, what does that mean? It doesn't guarantee us a win or anything like that, but we better be able to, I guess, feed the crowd. We better be able to do things that gets the crowd into the game. So I think, our playoff experience in general is what you think about, and there's definitely some good through those 10 games, but there's some lows too. We're 7-3 in those games, and I think that's what you try. Okay, well, what do you need to do to play your very best this time of year when you absolutely need to? And it's comforting as a coach to know you got a group of guys that have, the core of our team has been involved in so many big games, and we'll need them to come through come Saturday.
Going down to Vegas with Brody and everybody for the Campbell presentation, just any takeaways from that experience?
Well, it's an amazing event, and it is. I suppose Heisman night with that one award becomes the pinnacle of from the outside looking in, but the college football Hall of Fame banquet, honoring all those Hall of Fame inductees, and then honoring the 16 National Football Foundation scholar athletes. It's a heck of a night, and it is, in some ways it's who's who of college football that congregate in Vegas. It's an award ceremony that's been going on for a long, long time. It's only been in Vegas most recently, but I think to have Montana State represented there now 3 out of 4 years between Troy, Bill Kohler, and now Brody. I think that speaks to our program, but it really, it speaks to those 3 individuals for their performance, in Brody's case, on and off the field, to be able to put Montana State on that stage with, all the best programs across the country. So, it made for a busy day that day, practicing, flying down there and flying back after the banquet, but I know it was well worth it for Brody, and I think it was family to be there, and just thankful we were able to make it all happen.
I'm also working on Sorry and Justice, and I know this season hasn't gone as you all planned for him.
Yep.
Just, I guess, what have you seen out of him this year, and just what he's meant in this year?
Yeah, I think pretty quickly back in August, he didn't let it bring him down. And a guy that, especially offensive lineman, when you're one of, I think we have 18 in that position group. If you're a guy that's going to wear your ups and downs on your sleeve, it's going to have a wide-ranging effect within that group in particular. So I think his positivity from a pretty early stage post-injury, I think was significant for that room. I think he was able to look and say, I don't know why this happened here, but boy, I had 3 years of starting every game and not missing a snap basically in front of it. So, why did it happen? I can't worry about that. I'm going to do everything I can to put myself back in position to be a part of this. And he's done that. I know coming back and playing offensive line is challenging in its own right. His injury has made it a little bit more challenging to come back. He's come back and he's played now in the last 3 games in some fashion. I know he's ready to go if we do need him. So I think I've just appreciated his attitude, his mindset, how he's carried himself through a pretty difficult time. I know he was on track to, break starts records and be an all conference, all American type of guy, and again, you don't know why it happened. So I think he really appreciates what was in front of the injury, and he's making the most of what he can do to impact this team, throughout the rest of his time here.
We just,
Can you maybe speak about Bobby Daly's role and kind of what he means to this team, being kind of a legacy player and a guy who's been around the program as long as he has been?
Yeah, I think when I got here in 21, Bobby had just coached the one season in 19, but had been a part of the program or been back to the program for a couple of years, and it was really easy to see that this place meant so very much to him. Obviously, he had played here. His brother Brad had. His dad Jay had. So, the roots ran real deep. And, Bobby being a walk-on and becoming an All-American, that's a pretty significant story into itself. But I think now coming back and, becoming a coach, you withstand a coaching change, I guess. We changed systems. I felt like Bobby really adapted well that first year into a new system. You look at the success of our linebackers through the last 4 years. We've had all-conference, all-American level linebacker play, and that goes, credit goes to those players, but certainly a bunch of credit goes to Bobby. Quickly after I got the job, he transitioned into being the lead Montana recruiter. And, it goes without saying, I think we've done a really good job in the state recruiting, and a lot of credit goes to his efforts. I think the high school coaches really, they know Bobby and they trust him, and the way he communicates with them is a big part of our success in state. And now becoming a coordinator in year 4, he's taken our defense to another level, and there's a bunch of components to that. It's bringing that staff along in the off season, going back, to the winter months, making some subtle tweaks to all that we were doing. You're working with a group, a bunch of those guys he'd worked with, and Jody he'd played with. So you go from being, I guess, on the same line as some of those guys to now you're the coordinator, you're the voice in that room. That's not always easy, but he's done a really good job of leading them, but also listening to them at the same time. I think our players, it was easy for them to gravitate to Bobby being in that new role, going back to the winter, but he's got to also then execute those relationships with the players beyond the linebacker room. So I think he did a really good job going back to the winter and the spring with that. And then as we've gotten into games, as a first-time play caller, I think what I see is we're very prepared each week. Our guys know what they're doing. I think we change our plan up enough each week to present some challenges for the other offense. But then in games, I think he's been really forward-thinking, meaning we're not going to make every play. Good example on Friday night, we give up the long pass, and it happened. Okay, now what do we got to do to move on? Or even in some sequences where we might give up a long run or something, it's always moving forward. And that positivity, I think our guys have really fed off of that. So he means a lot to this program. This program means a lot to him. This coming from Helena over to MSU, his story means a lot to him, and he's able to articulate that very well. So, our success, Bobby's certainly a big part of that this fall, and he's been a big part of our success over a long, long time with this program.
There was just a Penn State backup quarterback who entered the portal,
Mm-hmm.
despite being in the playoff. There's a lot of coaches have talked about kind of different philosophies with trying to handle that at this point of the year. I was just kind of curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I do. The portal opened the 9th, and our season was done 2 weeks. Our regular season was done 2 weeks before that. So, fair to say we've had ongoing conversations about just trying to get out in front of, this complicated time. There's 2 weeks here where guys can go on visits. Then there's 2 weeks where they won't be able to. And then schools are starting, and there's some time on the other side. But, let's be transparent. Ultimately, as a coach, I want what's best for our guys, and there might be a scenario where, here or there that, the opportunity beyond Montana State might be best for them. And there might be situations where guys' role on our team isn't exactly what they're looking for, so they might be after something a little bit differently. So let's have an open conversation about what that means. I do think I do think each situation is its own, and should be handled as such. I think as a head coach, you'd be making a grave mistake to say this is the hard line that we are just working off of, because this time is not ideal. So it's lived in the FCS world for a little while. It's a little bit of a new world for more FBS teams this year. Is it right? I don't think so. But the calendar is dictated by our academic calendars, not our football seasons. So it is what it is. We got to live in it. And, ultimately, I want our guys that are part of the 24 team to be part of the 24 team as long as they can. If that means they're not going to be part of the 25 team and we get to that point, that's the way it goes. But, it's a pretty messy time, I guess, at the very least. I don't understand exactly, the Penn State situation, other than they maybe drew a hard line, I guess. Because I know there's some of those playoff teams have guys in the portal that are still, contributing, and I don't know. It's you live and you learn, I guess, is what you're trying to do, and being out front of it this year, I think, has served us a lot better than it did last year, when we really didn't have those conversations. Then our season's done, and then what happened. So,
Coulter, do you have anything?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, there's a huge investment put into that position, and if you're always turning it over, that's challenging. Because each quarterback is a little bit different, and you want to cater your offense towards the quarterback more than any other position. And to say that two guys are exactly the same, I don't think is ever the case, even if you have a couple guys battling it out. So I think there's that lean with your offense first of all. So if you can have that lean like we have, really for the better part of 3+ years now, you can continue to develop within that and evolve within that. And then, it goes without saying, the reps that Tommy's accumulated over time, they all add up, and the experience is, different than any other position. A game is the true tell. A lot of guys can go out there and sling it around in 7-on-7. They can be protected in we wear gold jerseys at practice and make it look like football. But when you're out there and the bullets are flying and those guys in the other jerseys can tackle you, it's a whole different world. So game experience, I think, at that position is so much different than any other position. And it accumulates the better. And I do think especially if you can lean into a guy and continue to see him grow, what he can become at the end of it is something pretty special. It doesn't mean you can't win with a one-year starter. It doesn't mean that at all. But it's certainly more challenging, and your offense takes, I think, on a little bit different form if you're living in a one-year mode.
Because 6 of the last 8 teams this year were teams with multiple year starters, and then you also have Idaho with Jack Wade as a sophomore. You think it's kind of a blueprint or like an indicator for teams moving forward that maybe going and getting a fancy Power 5 quarterback isn't the way to do it in the FCS?
Well, I think that's true. I think sometimes you don't always have that good fortune to say, okay, Tommy Malott's leaving. We have it all figured out beyond him, I guess. You'd absolutely want to develop from within. You'd want to, if you are going to take on a transfer, you maybe want to take it on a transfer with some years. No matter what, though, whether it's a guy that's coming up through your system or a guy you bring in, they got to fit, and they got to fit when the time is right for the time is up for them. When it's their turn, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know that it can't work either way necessarily, but that position is the most difficult to play in sports. It's the most important position on a football team. Rarely at any level do you win without good quarterback play. So we're all after that, and how that person fits within your team and how impactful he can be in the off season is significant too. I think that's the stuff that doesn't go seen a lot. So we all, yeah. I mean, I think it's a predictor for success. It's not the absolute, meaning a guy that grows within your system, but I think we're really fortunate. We're reaping the benefits of a guy that's, he's done just that. He's developed. He's become something different. He is playing at an elite level right now, and for us to be in this position, we wouldn't be here without the way Tommy's played.
In terms of just the rise of South Dakota as a football program, do you feel like just being in the same ecosystem as two of the premier programs in the FCS that sort of pushed them forward?
Yeah. So I was at NDSU when South Dakota came, I guess, back to us. I don't even know what year that would have been. Probably 11 or something like that. So they in North Dakota were behind South Dakota State and North Dakota State. Not only with the transition to 1AA FCS, but then also the move into the Missouri Valley. And they were ahead of North Dakota. They got in, again, whatever year that was. It was somewhere in that, I think 11 is what if I recall right. And they were behind in that stretch, and I think they're really fortunate to get Coach Nielsen to come in. And I think his championship background and mindset and commitment to that program, alongside, being right there in the same state as the Jackrabbits and, a state down from the Bison, I think is it's those types of things. Obviously, they've chosen at the University of South Dakota to invest. I would guess. You look at the way the Dakota Dome looks now. I haven't been in there for a long time, but it looks a lot different than the last time I was in there. I know they built a basketball facility. I mean, they've just done things at that university to continue to move forward, and I'm sure in large part because their in-state counterparts were doing the same thing, and they didn't want to stand by just watching all that happen. So credit to them, credit to them for not just being comfortable being second fiddle. And they're in a place right now this year where they're, tri-champions of that league. And I'm sure if you'd asked a lot of people, even a few years back, they probably wouldn't have seen that coming.
Another one, I know Slim asked you about Bobby Daly, but I wanted to ask about Sean now. Two questions. First of all, what have you done with sort of the relationship between Bobby and Sean and sort of their collaboration on that defensive side?
Well, that's been really important, and they've worked with me for all 4 seasons. They were, I think, both guys that contributed significantly our first 3 years, whether Freddie was coordinator or Willie Mack, and ultimately in moving forward, and hiring from within, only one guy was going to call the plays, and made the decision to go with Bobby. And I think there was an understanding that those two had to continue to, more so than ever, work together in leading the charge and what we were doing through the course of the off season, during the course of any game week, and then how we function on game day. So, I appreciate them both for understanding how I set the roles, I guess, and then putting putting their egos aside and working together so that our defense could take it to another level. Without their willingness to, I guess, follow my lead and how I sorted it out, we wouldn't be in the position we were. And I said it back when we made the decision to name Sean the co-defense coordinator. That's a real title in my mind, especially when we're talking about how we operate outside of game day. And I think he's taken to that, and Bobby's allowed for those those opportunities for Sean as well. So pleased with how it's worked out, and just fortunate to have had both those guys on staff now for the 4 years I've been here.
And you mentioned Bobby's love of the program and his legacy within it. Sean comes from sort of an outside lens, right? And having worked at big time places, worked with guys like Bobby Gifford. So how much do you think that sort of accentuates each other with Bobby being the sort of in-house homegrown guy, and Sean having been in some of the best programs in the country?
Yeah, I think sometimes with like Sean's experience, I think your access to a different point of view, different people in the business, I think has been there. I think Sean's experience within this relative system is deeper than Bobby's. So, I think being able to call back on the way they did things here, the way they did things there. Sean worked with Scotty Hazelton, who I go way back with, and getting Scotty, involved, I guess, with even a relationship with Bobby this past off season was big. But then, I think it's just that. I think trying to always find the best way to do things is what both of their experiences, I think, I guess, bring to the table. And again, how well they work together is a credit to both them as individuals. And I think at the same time, yeah, Bobby's got deep ties here. He's, as deep as anybody. But at the same time, Sean, I think I feel the same way for him, meaning this isn't just a flash in the pan in his career. I think he's really enjoyed this opportunity to be here. He'd moved around quite a bit, so I don't know it for a fact, but I would guess this is his longest stint at a place. And I think he takes a great amount of pride in our success here at Montana State. He's really poured into our players in this time that he's been here. And that's what you really want when guys are here as coaches, wherever they come from, that this is where they're at. And they're entirely invested in the opportunity to lead our players and to give them the best chance to have a meaningful experience. And I in different ways, I think they've both done that while they've been here.
And last thing for me, the defensive line is the level they're playing at right now, and they're really sort of overcome the Blake Smith injury, and just how many guys have been able to be game ready. How much of a testament is that to Coach Al?
Yeah, it's a lot of credit goes to him and certainly Coach Bapp as well. And I think since I've been here, the charge has been we can't just go out there with four guys. We've got to develop depth, and I do think this is the deepest group that we've had, both in talent but then experience as well. And guys, truly understanding their roles, and if it means they're a single digit type of guy plays per game, they're gonna single digit plays are gonna be impactful. Or the guy that's gonna play 40 plus plays, he's gonna figure out how to do that. I think our creativity within that group has stretched the group. Guys like Kenny and Brody and even Dom Solano being able to go inside and do some things. The emergence of Paul Brott. Sean's seen that through from his redshirt year. Where Paul came in as a pretty raw, hardworking, talented guy, but become I think a real force. So. I think our development there has been on par with what we'd hoped it would be. And, just like on the offensive side, our success, begins with that group and the discipline they play with, the effort they play with. And, right now I think we're playing at a pretty high clip.
Anything else in the room?
Somebody asked me that Drew Polidor. Is there anything injury-wise with him? Or?
I think he, like, at tail end of the game, I think it was a long game for him. So he was out there practicing today, I guess. So that's, yeah, you know.
Well, getting back into the semis, third time in 4 years for you. So just how excited are you for the upcoming game?
It's a pretty good feeling, especially having it in Bobcat Stadium, being able to have a home game with our fans here supporting us. It's a really good feeling.
How much do you think back to that 21 home game here and that South Dakota State game? How just as fresh as that in your memory?
It's pretty special. That's one of the coolest games and moments I've ever been a part of, and thinking back to that's a lot of good memories to that game.
Can you tell us a little bit about Vegas and the Campbell trophies presentation and all that?
Yeah, that was a really great opportunity. Had a ton of fun. It was a quick trip, but got to meet some really cool people, some Hall of Famers, and then obviously some of the best players in college football this year. So just getting to chat up some football and hang out with them and interact with them, that was a really cool experience for me.
Anybody stand out that you met?
I mean, some of the players that I grew up watching, like Larry Fitzgerald, Julius Peppers. I mean, Randy Moss was supposed to be there. I didn't get to see him, but yeah, those were pretty cool because I watched them so much growing up, and so yeah, that was awesome.
Coming up on your final home game, this week, as you kind of reflect back just the whole process, what does this university program mean to you?
Means the world. It's given me everything. It's been a long ride, but it's felt quick, and being able to do this with some of my best friends, guys that'll be in my wedding, and it means the world to be able to take this last ride out with them and give it everything we can and learn from our mistakes in the past and try to get better and figure out ways to just keep moving forward. And I think that's why this group is so special.
Have you guys been able to take in how special this season has been so far, the history you've made, or is it still kind of eyes on the prize?
Sort of. It's kind of hard to with our goals being in front of us and what we have moving forward. But I think that bye week, especially after the regular season, was a great time to go home, reflect, and think about how special that regular season was and how we're going to reset and keep moving forward in the playoffs.
Yeah, thinking about Idaho on Friday night, 2 plays gave you guys a lot of momentum, one of those being the fumble recovery you had. I guess you kind of just take me through that play. I know he kind of ran into his lineman, but being able to recover that fumble.
Yeah, it was a big play right there in the 2-minute situation that got us the ball back so we could score. And, I mean, it was a screen, so I was just trying to retrace and get back and get in on a play. And somebody, I think it was Rylan or Bryce, I can't remember, somebody ran into the lineman and set him up, and just it all worked out right. And I was there to make the play, and could have been anybody else, but I was just hustling over there, and it all worked out.
In order for you guys to keep those goals in front of you, what do you got to improve on from this past game and bringing it to this Saturday?
Explosive plays. That was one of our worst days of having explosive plays. Couple long touchdowns, long runs in the second half, stuff like that. So we definitely got to improve on that. They like taking shots down the field, South Dakota does. So being better in the run game on explosives in the pass game as well.
Is there anything you guys did pressure-wise? It seemed like you got a lot more pressure later in the game as the game went on. Is there anything you guys did differently that you felt like was able to be successful in those situations?
I mean, they changed their protections a little bit. It was more later in the game when you're down, you're forced to throw the ball a lot more, so it's easier to dial up pressure and stuff like that for sure. Or earlier in the game, doing more play action, heavy, like max protection, having tight ends, backs, chipping, and stuff like that. So definitely in the second half, being up like that, it's definitely easier to get play calls or have Coach Howe give us games or different things like that to change it up on them.
Do you think it was an advantage playing on the Friday night because you guys got all of Saturday? Like, I guess what was this weekend like watching the other teams on Saturday and everything?
It was definitely a quick turnaround, but in hindsight, when you get that on Friday, you get the win. Being able to rest on Saturday, watch those games, have an extra day to heal up, prepare, everything like that. That definitely, I think, should give us a little bit of an advantage on health-wise.
You talked about this group being special. How proud are you just of this entire senior group and what you guys have kind of been through these last 4 years, 5 years, just in everything you guys have accomplished? How proud are you of this specific group?
I mean, we just came together and, I mean, drew a line in the sand, I guess you could say, and said we're gonna take this to another level and try to be better and do things that we haven't done in the past. Go through things in the off season, make it tougher on ourselves, and try to take it to another level. And I think it's all kind of worked out, and we got to keep it going forward.
I guess speaking of that, what does a guy like McCade meant to his defense, leadership-wise, just kind of his play, everything?
McCade's a guy that didn't play a ton early in his career, but he's a Montana kid that's always stuck to the process, loved this place, and done everything he can for it. And for him to last couple of years be able to step up and go into a bigger role, leadership role, a role where we depend on him to make a lot of plays for us, he's stepped into that and thrived, and he's been instrumental for us.
How much did you guys, Tommy mentioned how the past has kind of helped you guys get through these tough moments in games like this. So how much do you feel like just, the highs and lows in previous years have helped you guys prepare for tougher, high pressure moments in these games?
Definitely. Adversity can either bring out the best in you or it can tear you down. And I think, in some of the past games we've got torn down by it, and I think we've learned from some of those mistakes and we've been in some situations. Last game at the beginning of the game, we gave up a couple touchdowns and ended up bowing up and making some plays both on offense and defense, and feel like that's something we've definitely got a lot better at, and that's helped us from our previous failures.
It's just you guys and the Dakotas left. You're that sole representative now for Montana and for the Big Sky. Just, what stood out most about South Dakota, what you saw on Saturday, and the ability to kind of get through the Dakotas to put Montana State back in that championship level? What's it going to take?
There's a reason that us and the Dakotas are in this last four, I think, is a physical brand of football, being able to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I think that's what it comes down to. South Dakota and all the teams is very physical teams, O-line, D-lines, and you got to win the line of scrimmage to win these games. And we take that personally, and as a D-line, and I know the O-line does too. And so,
what's the advantage of Bobcat Stadium this Saturday?
You could see it in Idaho, a couple false starts, miscommunication on some things, momentum swings, going from being 17-10 or whatever it was to 31-10 just in a couple minutes. Momentum's huge here in Bobcat Stadium, so I hope we can pack it out again, and it'll be a great atmosphere.
Part of the Campbell Trophy, obviously, is the academic part of it. And your Coach Howe, was saying how you're able to studying how to turn cow manure. You've done it both in school and in real life, turning cow manure into fuel. So can you describe kind of that process and what you've been doing on that front?
Yeah, I've been working on that for a couple years now. Originally, it was just the idea on how I can maybe give the ranch another source of revenue or something like that. And then with our capstone for mechanical engineering, it's a whole year process of one semester designing and then the second semester of actually building it and seeing if it'll work. And came together with two other students, and it all kind of worked out pretty well, and we got it going, and some experiments on it, and yeah.
What's it called exactly?
It's a bioreactor.
Bioreactor.
So yeah, you mix some cattle manure with water, and you got to have it at the right conditions with temperature-wise. So we got heaters, and it's all automated with sensors and everything like that gives feedback to an internal microcomputer, and so it's all pretty much runs itself. So that's the nice thing about it. It takes about a week or 10 days for it to grow in there. The algae it starts as pretty clear water, and it turns into a dark green just in a couple days. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, to win, on Saturday and to get set up the number 7 final game, how excited are you to play here again in the semis?
Very excited. It's always great to play at home, and excited for the crowd that's going to be here.
This will be the first one I think you're starting in a semi game here. So I guess playing 2 years ago in the semis, but now playing here. What are you kind of preparing for, and what do you think the crowd will be like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be electric, and I didn't play 2 years ago, but excited to start another game, and we got to prepare the same way.
South Dakota seemed to get a lot of pressure on Hastings on Saturday. Just what stands out most to you about that D line in South Dakota?
They're high effort. They never stop, and so we got to bring our best.
When you think about your journey over the last 4+ years, what is this kind of program? All these guys, Montana State in general, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot. I love all the guys in the locker room, and it just shows how consistent this program is.
What stands out? Any player on South Dakota's line that really stands out for you?
They're all very good. Number 90's a good player from what I've heard, and we got to bring our best.
Seems like they play multiple fronts. What kind of challenge, I guess, does that provide the fronts that you're going to see?
I think they're pretty base. That's what they want to be. Just they think they're better than you, and that's what they're going to play. So we got to bring our best, but we're always expecting something else.
You guys fought for this home field advantage. You mentioned it for a game like this for the semifinals. What is Bobcat Stadium like? What do you expect on Saturday for you guys?
It's going to be loud, hopefully when we're off the field. But, it's going to be electric, and just love the atmosphere.
Getting all-conference, all-American honors, whether this year, previous years, what has that kind of meant to you personally?
It's cool, but I'm here to win a national championship.
Also, on the East-West Shrine, I guess just what kind of honor is that for you?
It's very cool, but we got to beat South Dakota this week.
Having Justice kind of back in the mix, what has that been like?
It's great. He's just all energy guy, and he's a great dude. So,
what has he kind of meant to this O-line group in your time here playing alongside him?
He's just been probably one of the most consistent players in Bobcat history. Starting 40 games, and he's meant a lot to this program.
What of the entire offensive line, all the guys, what have those guys meant to you?
A lot. Those guys are my brothers, and I'll talk to them every day, and I'll probably talk to them for the rest of my life. So,
what kind of growth have you seen from Connor?
He's been very consistent. The first year he started, maybe a little iffy, but he's just grown into a very consistent offensive lineman.
Adam talks a lot about how much he looks up to you. To watch him have a game like Cat Grizz, like last week when he's getting the full load, just what's it been like watching his breakout campaign as a Montana native?
It's really cool. Through last spring and fall camp, you kind of could tell that he was going to be that type of player. So it's cool to see that all pay off for him.